I didn't ride my Harley much anymore. Not because I didn't love it, but because sometimes loving something means knowing when to leave it alone. The bike sat in my garage under a black cover, polished, tuned, and quiet. A 2018 Road Glide. Midnight blue. Loud in all the right ways when it was alive. But I lived in an HOA now. And HOAs don't like loud things. They don't like individuality. They don't like freedom. And they especially don't like motorcycles. So I followed the rules.
Locked garage. No revving.
No riding after 8 p.m. No parking outside. I did everything right. Which is why what happened next shattered my sense of reality. Karen lived 3 doors down. Her real name wasn't Karen. But it might as well have been. She was the HOA's unofficial enforcer. The kind of woman who didn't need authority because she acted like she had it anyway.
Clipboard. Permanence goal.
Just checking tone. Her son, Tyler, was 19. Angry.
Loud.
Reckless. The kind of kid who looked at rules like they were personal insults. And the kind of kid who wouldn't stop staring at my bike. Is that thing fast? That was the first thing he ever said to me. I was unloading groceries when he wandered over, hands in his hoodie pockets, eyes locked on the Harley as I lifted the garage door. Fast enough? I replied. He circled it slowly. Bet it screams. Bet it stays right where it is, I said calmly. He smirked. Karen appeared seconds later, like she'd been summoned by tension. Tyler, don't bother him, she snapped, then turned to me. Those things are dangerous, you know. I nodded. So are cars.
She didn't like that.
The HOA notices everything over the next few months. I got noise complaints when I hadn't ridden, parking warnings. While the bike was in the garage, a letter suggesting motorcycles were inconsistent with community values. I ignored it. Because legally, they couldn't touch me. But Karen never stopped watching. And Tyler never stopped asking questions. How fast does it go? You ever race? Let me hear it once. Every answer was the same.
No.
The night everything changed, it was a Friday. Rain earlier. Roads slick. The kind of night you stay in. I was asleep by midnight. At 2:14 a.m. My phone buzzed. Missed call. Unknown number. Then another. Then the pounding started. Not on my door. On my garage. I jumped up, heart racing. By the time I pulled on jeans and rushed outside, red and blue lights were washing over the houses. Police. Ambulance. Neighbors standing barefoot in the street. And my garage door was open. Wide open. The Harley was gone. Is this your motorcycle? A state trooper approached me. Sir, he said carefully, do you own a blue Harley-Davidson Road Glide? My mouth went dry. Yes. He nodded slowly. I'm sorry to inform you that it was involved in a fatal accident approximately 6 miles from here. The world tilted. Who was riding it? I asked. He hesitated, then said the name. Tyler. The truth comes out. Security footage didn't lie. Karen's son had entered my driveway at 1:47 a.m., broken into my garage, found the spare key. I kept locked in a coded box, taken the bike, without permission, no helmet. No license endorsement. Blood alcohol level well above legal. He lost control on a curve and slammed into a guardrail. Dead on impact. I sat on the curb as officers spoke quietly nearby. I felt sick. But I also knew something terrible was coming. Because Karen was screaming. This is your fault. She arrived at the scene hysterical. Pointing. Shaking. He shouldn't even own a thing like that, she screamed at me. You tempted him. You left it where he could see it. An officer gently moved her back. I said nothing. I didn't know yet that grief was about to turn into something much worse. The lawsuit 3 weeks later, I was served. Karen was suing me for wrongful death, negligence, emotional distressor claim. That I failed to secure a dangerous vehicle, knowingly enticed a minor, he was 19, created an attractive nuisance, she wanted everything. And the HOA. They sided with her. And that's when I fought back, because grief doesn't excuse lies. And tragedy doesn't rewrite the law. She thought tears would win. She forgot about evidence. The lawsuit felt unreal when I first read it. My name, bolded at the top. Defendant. Karen was listed as plaintiff, individually and as surviving parent. She wanted damages for wrongful death, pain, and suffering, emotional distress, loss of future income. Her attorney had wrapped the entire thing in emotional language. But emotion doesn't win cases.
Facts do.
And the facts were brutal, for her. My lawyer didn't flinch. I hired an attorney who specialized in liability and negligence defense. Former prosecutor. Calm voice. Sharp eyes. He read the complaint once. Then a second time. Then he slid it back across the desk. This is a grief lawsuit, he said. Not a legal one. What does that mean? I asked. It means she's hoping emotion scares you into settling. He paused. It won't. The first question that killed her case, my lawyer asked one question before anything else. Did she report the motorcycle stolen? Yes, I said. The police did. Immediately. He nodded. Good. That changes everything. Because under the law, once a vehicle is stolen, the owner is not responsible for the thief's actions. Liability transfers entirely to the unauthorized user, especially if the theft involved forced entry and Karen's son didn't just borrow my bike. He committed a felony. Security footage is ruthless. The HOA had cameras. They didn't know how much that would hurt them. The footage showed Tyler checking my driveway earlier that evening, coming back after midnight, forcing the garage side door, breaking the lock on the key box, rolling the bike out quietly, no permission.
No consent. No ambiguity.
Premeditation. My lawyer smiled when he saw it. This isn't negligence, he said. This is theft. Karen's story starts changing in her deposition. Karen cried. A lot. But her story shifted. First, she said Tyler had permission. Then she said I'd implied permission. Then she claimed I knew he was interested and didn't stop him. My lawyer asked one question that stopped the room. Did your son have a motorcycle license endorsement?
No.
Had he ever ridden a motorcycle legally?
No.
Did you know he drank alcohol that night?
Silence.
I didn't know, she said. But phone records did. Discovery pulled Tyler's phone records. Text to friends that night. Gonna take that Harley. Dude never rides it. Watch this. One message, sent just minutes before the crash. This thing is insane. Karen closed her eyes when they were read aloud. Her attorney didn't look at her. The HOA makes a fatal mistake. The HOA decided to support Karen. Bad idea. They submitted emails claiming the motorcycle was a known hazard. They had repeatedly warned me. They believed I was reckless. My lawyer requested the full email chains. Not summaries.
Full chains.
And buried in those emails was gold. They knew the bike was locked. One HOA board member wrote, "At least he keeps it locked up properly. Tyler just likes staring at it." Another, "We can't do anything about a bike in a closed garage." That single line destroyed any claim of negligence. The HOA knew the bike was secured. I followed the rules. There was no prior incident. They had documented it themselves. Karen's attorney tries to settle 2 weeks later. I got the call. They wanted to resolve this quietly. I asked my lawyer what that meant. It means they know they're going to lose, he said. Should we settle?
He shook his head. No.
This case needs a ruling. Because settling would imply fault. And I had none. The motion that changed everything. My lawyer filed a motion for summary judgment. In plain English, even if every fact is viewed in the plaintiff's favor, the law does not allow this case to proceed. The judge scheduled a hearing. Karen sat across the room from me. She didn't look angry anymore. She looked desperate. The judge didn't raise his voice. He didn't lecture. He simply said, "A stolen vehicle does not create liability for its owner." Then, attractive nuisance does not apply to secured personal property. And finally, tragedy does not override responsibility. He dismissed the case with prejudice, meaning it could never be filed again, because Karen wasn't done blaming, and the HOA wasn't done interfering. They just made their own position very interesting. After weeks of legal maneuvering, the HOA realized something terrifying. They were the ones on the hook now. Internal emails, which later became public record during the discovery process, showed chaos. One board member wrote, "Why did we even back Karen? This could cost us personally." Another admitted, "We might be sued for aiding her harassment." Several resigned quietly before their names could appear in any legal documents. The HOA was imploding from within, not because of me, but because their own actions had created risk. Karen's lawyer suggested one last tactic: try to amend the complaint, adding claims about mental anguish and community neglect. But my attorney responded with documented evidence of her son's theft, alcohol consumption, and reckless driving, making any new claims baseless. The judge denied her motion, citing, "Further filings would be frivolous and subject to sanctions." Within 2 months, Karen's attorney withdrew. Karen was personally liable for her own legal fees. HOA funds had already been strained by prior legal support. Karen's attempt to sue me had backfired spectacularly. The story spread throughout the community. Neighbors realized the bike was secured. Social media posts exposed her false claims. Community trust in the HOA plunged. One neighbor wrote on Nextdoor, "Trying to sue someone because your adult son stole a motorcycle. That's insane. Learn accountability." The HOA board quietly removed Karen's support from newsletters and community statements. Months later, I could finally breathe. The garage remained untouched. HOA stopped sending letters. Karen eventually moved away from the community. The tragedy of Tyler's death remained, grief for a lost life, but justice had been served. No false liability was assigned. No unjust fines were paid. Facts prevailed over emotion. Standing in my driveway one evening, I realized the most important lesson: you can't control others, but you can control preparation and the law. I secured my property. I followed every regulation. I documented everything. And when disaster struck, evidence protected me. Karen had tried to manipulate grief to create liability, but the truth was stronger. Even after the dismissal, a few board members tried one final act, claiming my bike violated aesthetic rules, threatening fines, but the county quickly reminded them, legal authority doesn't come from emotion or fear. It comes from written rules and law. Theft is never the owner's fault. Documentation and legal compliance are your strongest defenses. Grief and anger cannot override facts. I could finally ride my Harley again, carefully, legally, and without fear. And the HOA. They learned the hard way. Don't pick a fight you can't win. By now, the HOA was quietly collapsing under its own weight. Karen had lost every legal foothold, and the community was finally seeing the consequences of her and the HOA's actions. After months of legal fees and failed motions, Karen had personally paid tens of thousands to her own lawyer. HOA reimbursements were blocked by insurance. Her social reputation in the neighborhood was in ruins. Neighbors whispered about the Karen lawsuit disaster, and anyone who had supported her quietly distanced themselves. Her desperation had created a social and financial isolation she couldn't recover from. The HOA had to make several concessions to survive. New bylaws were enacted to prevent board members from backing personal lawsuits. Mandatory legal review for any future actions. Apologies were issued to me. Quietly and formally, emails between board members revealed panic and regret. We underestimated the homeowner's preparedness. Never again will we intervene without documentation. The HOA had learned that power without understanding invites disaster. I finally rode my Harley again, legally and safely. No threats from the HOA, no lawsuits hanging over my head. Freedom restored. I realized that victory wasn't revenge, it was accountability. Karen's son's tragic death remained heartbreaking, but it wasn't my fault. The law made that clear. The calm of my neighborhood returned. The garage stayed locked when not in use, but I no longer feared what could happen. Neighbors began talking about responsibility and property rights. People realized protecting your property legally matters more than angering a neighbor. HOAs started being more careful about enforcement and lawsuits. A culture of accountability slowly replaced entitlement. Karen's attempt to sue had unintentionally educated the whole neighborhood about legal boundaries. Standing by my Harley one evening, I thought about the chain of events. Tyler stole the bike without permission. Karen attempted to weaponize grief. HOA supported her irrationally. Documentation, law, and preparation kept me safe. The moral was clear. Truth and preparation always outweigh emotion and entitlement. The story wasn't about winning a case. It was about knowing your rights, standing your ground, and letting the law speak for you. Months later, Karen moved away. The HOA slowly stabilized under new leadership. I rode freely through the streets, the wind in my face, the Harley roaring exactly as it should.